All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our end of January edition of our Trout Routes 101. Kind of learn how to use the app tonight. We're going to be going through hopefully giving you a quick overview, but hopefully a deep enough overview to where that you can start to plan out those spring trips, or if you've already been jumping on the water, we can hopefully get you on some new water or even learn that water that you've already been exploring even better. So I do have Jeremy, who's from our core Trout Routes team. He's our GIS specialist over on the Trout Routes side. Here to kind of act as our customer support, kind of making sure that any questions that can be answered right away get answered in that Q&A section, and just kind of making sure he's hanging out here. So a couple quick housekeeping things before that we do continue on is going to be just making sure that you all know that your camera and your sound are off. So if you got dogs or kids running around in the background, don't worry, we can't see, can't hear you, so no worries there. Next thing is going to be that this class is being recorded and then will be posted on the Trout Routes YouTube channel early tomorrow, so you can make sure that you can reference back if you have to jump off at any point early, things like that. You can always go back and watch it there at any time as well. So without further ado, let's kind of take a look at what we're going to be covering in class today. So the kind of main overview for the agenda is going to be, we're going to be taking a look at our membership options. So for those of you who already have an account, you're probably aware that we've got a basic and our pro option. So we'll kind of run through the big differences between that. We'll jump into those map layers, which really kind of starts to get into the pro side of things. We'll start to kind of understand, just making sure that you know how to navigate the map, whether it be that pinch to zoom, panning around, things like that. We'll make sure that you can navigate to different states. Map icons in the stream card, that's going to be the bread and butter of that pro version, right? So we'll really start to dive into that, making sure that you get the most of all of those features. Sometimes it can be a lot to try to learn right away, so we'll try to dive in there, make sure that you all know what is going on. So the next one we'll be covering is stream gauges. I personally think that this might be the most powerful part of the app, and so we'll be making sure we dive into that, make sure you know how to use those stream gauges again as some of those streams start opening up as we get into spring here, or if you're fishing tailwaters, you can make sure you find those active flows, things like that. We'll be covering offline maps and all of those custom map content things that you can add. So that'll be really nice to be able to start diving into that. That's going to be really where you can start to customize your map, make it your own, add those waypoints with all that knowledge and safety, knowing that you have all of your information protected right there in your own kind of personal fishing log, so to speak. Then we'll be moving into the My Location, the River Miles, and the tutorials. That's going to be for those iOS users along the right-hand side of the screen there. And then web maps, we'll jump over to the web map, kind of explore some of the ins and outs of that. It does mimic the mobile version pretty much, but we'll kind of cover a few of the intricacies there and just make sure that everybody is aware of that, the fact that there are web maps. Sometimes we find out users haven't even been utilizing those web maps. As we'll cover later, I personally love planning out my trip utilizing that bigger screen real estate. And then we'll jump into that Q&A. And so just as a reminder, we do tonight have those two sections. We've got that chat and that Q&A, and so you'll be able to drop where you're kind of joining us from, things like that, into the chat, and then that Q&A will be reserved for any questions you have that Jeremy, again, might be able to answer right away, or we'll kind of bank them and answer all of the rest at the end of class. So let's move on. I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to open up the app, and we're going to dive right on in. So Jeremy, I can see it. So if you can just give me a nod if you can see my screen, that would be, there we go. Perfect. Appreciate it. All right, so diving in first thing, like I said, we're going to kind of cover the membership options. So again, for those of you who are already have accounts, you probably are aware that we have a pro version, which is going to be the paid version of the app, or you have the option to continue as a basic member when you sign up. If you sign up as a basic member, your map is going to look pretty similar to this. You're going to get that kind of basic overview that's going to show you all of the trout water around you or around wherever you might be searching. It's not going to show you those classifications like you'll get with the pro version. It's not going to be able to give you those rich stream cards, information in those stream cards, things like that. That's all going to be locked out with the basic version. But you are going to, like I said, have the ability to, whether you want to just find out if there's trout water around where you live, or if you're traveling to a new state and you're like, is there trout water anywhere near that area I'm going to be? This is going to be a really quick, easy way to kind of find out that base level, or even if you're just, you want to just start exploring and you're just starting out on your trout fishing journey and you just want to get in the water and start casting and you don't care whether there's huge fish, small fish. You're like, I just want to cast a rod. This is going to be also a great tool to be able to kind of start out as. One of the nice things with the basic version that you do have is you have three of those main kind of create content tools available to you. So you can create a marker, you can create lines, and you can create shapes. We'll go into those a little bit deeper in a little bit, but that is one of the things that you do have available to you as a basic member, along with all of those fly shops around the country. So this is a really nice way to quickly and easily be able to find those fly shops. Again, whether you're on the water around home or you're traveling to a new area, again, if you want, you'll probably want to stop in at those fly shops, grab some flies that might be working around there, just get some of that local intel, things like that. This is going to be where you'll be able to find all of those fly shops around the country. Obviously, we're looking at Colorado right now, kind of one of the meccas of fly fishing, so to speak, right? So there's a lot of fly shops, obviously a lot of water to explore, things like that. So one of the other icons that you can see right now that you will see as a basic member is going to be those stream gauges. I like to say one of the ways that you could potentially use these icons as a basic member, because if you do click into them, you are going to be locked out of any of that information in real time, but you can utilize some of these icons to cross-tabulate on the USGS stream gauge service, things like that. You can find them on the app, go to find them on the web. I will say if you upgrade to Pro, it's a lot easier with one click, but that is one way that I know basic members sometimes do try to get the most out of the app that way. So we won't spend too much time on basic though. We're going to jump into Pro pretty quick here and start to explore all of the ins and outs of that. So moving right along. The first thing that I like to dive into when I look at Pro is going to be the guide mode. This is probably the map mode that I utilize the most often. It's going to give you all those, as you can see, all of that water changed from that same color blue to multiple different colors. We've got that gold classification. Class 1 is going to be that brighter green. We've got that brighter blue is going to be Class 2, and then that darker blue is going to be your Class 3 streams. You might be saying, Matt, what do all those classifications mean? I know the classifications for my state, but I don't necessarily know it for the state that I'm going to be traveling to. Well, the classifications within trout routes are going to be proprietary classifications, but a really quick, easy way to kind of understand those classifications is if we click into any river, we can click right on that rating where you see along the right-hand side, it says Class 2. We can click right into that. We can see what all of those stream classes are. So this is going to give you a really quick, easy view as to understanding some of those waterways. Obviously, those gold medal streams are going to be your larger, more high producing waterways, so to speak. And then those blue lines are going to be some of those Class 3s, those Class 2s, some of those waters that you wouldn't necessarily want to plan a whole trip around one, but you could plan a trip around exploring a ton of them. So that's kind of one of the quick, easy ways to start exploring guide mode. The next map mode that you get access to with upgrading to Pro is going to be that access map mode. So this map mode, if we zoom out here, you can kind of see there's going to be some different coloration on the waterways that we saw. If we jump into the legend here, it's going to be really quick and easy to start to understand that. You can see some of the land changed from just that base layer shade of green to having purple to having orange. We can see that some of that is going to be easement lands. It's going to be national park lands, state park lands, things like that. You can see if we zoom into some of this, this is going to be easement sections on specific waterways. So certain private landowners will allow access for specifically fishing typically onto their waterways, onto their land. And so this is going to be one of those things that I like to typically check before that I plan a trip. Sometimes some of these easement sections and things have a little bit less pressure. Sometimes they're not as often fished, right? People don't know about them. They might be a county level easement that we've been able to find and Jeremy's been able to dig up and include in the app, right? So some of these are going to be a really great place to start if you're exploring a new area, or you can jump over to this access section, and we've heard about people finding about easements, 10 minutes away from them that they didn't even know about, but were able to find utilizing the app. So that's going to be one of the main ways that I utilize that access layer. Again, you might find that you utilize it for something else, but those easements are going to be one of the big things that jump out to you when you click over onto that access layer. When we jump over the regulations layer here, you can see those streamlines change again. And if we back out, it's going to be best if we try to back out and have a couple different states within view, because this is going to allow you to see really kind of quick, easy stream classifications from state to state. And again, the legend is going to be the perfect place to kind of jump into these to find those different regulations again from state to state. So as I mentioned, now that we've got a few different states in view, you can see we've got those Colorado regulations are going to be those different colors, and Utah is going to have those different color regulations. So that map legend again is going to be a great tool when utilizing this layer or in this mode to jump in and explore those different regulations, be able to kind of understand certain sections that might be walk and wait only, whatever it might be. That's going to be, there's going to be some more information on that in the stream card that we'll kind of cover later. But again, this mode is a great way to kind of see it from the top view. We'll switch back to guide mode before we start jumping into those base maps. But I would mention that guide mode tends to be the layer that I use the most. Like I said, the contrast is nice, especially if you're utilizing the roads base map. That's going to be a lot of nice contrast, really easy for people to see. When you start getting into some of those other modes, the contrast switches up a little bit, and you might start wanting to zoom in a little bit more as you're getting into those different modes. So we'll switch back to that guide mode before we start looking at those other layers. And we'll find a good area with some terrain because we're going to be jumping into 3D maps as we get through some of these layers as well. So again, that first layer, first base map that we're going to take a look at is going to be that roads layer. And that's going to be pretty self-explanatory. You're going to have all of your main roads that you're going to be able to want to find to get to the access points, to find different public sections, things like that. So the roads base layer is definitely going to be one of those layers that I like using a lot. Kind of helps you again from that top level as you're starting to plan your trip. You might start getting into those different layers as you start to figure out, all right, what is the hike into this specific river going to be? But as you're starting to plan that trip, the roads layer and that guide mode are going to be a great place to start. Again, though, you can start getting a little bit more granular. We've got the terrain layer here, so that's going to give you some really nice detail. You can start to understand the topography a little bit, start to understand how strenuous a hike might be into a certain section, things like that. And then if we switch over to that satellite layer, we can again start to get some of those different views. One of the things that we hear a lot is, I want to see this satellite layer without that public land shading. That's really quick and easy. We are going to go over it later in the filters when we go over the filters completely, but I will say along that bottom bar there, on the right-hand side, you can quickly and easily turn off that public land by just toggling that on and off right there. So that'll get rid of that green shading for that public land, allow you to zoom in on all of those areas and get all of that satellite information that you might want. Go ahead and toggle that back on for now. So, like I mentioned, we do have the ability to turn on 3D maps. So that is going to be one of those things that you can utilize in any of the base maps, which is going to be awesome. You can see if we just toggle on that 3D maps, we can then use 2 fingers to kind of tilt ourselves, start to see some of that terrain, and really understand what we might be getting ourselves into if we start to hike up some of these sections. So again, we can switch those base layers. It's going to take us back. We'll pan again. And all of those different layers are going to give you different information, right? So we all know mapping is a personal experience. We've all experienced that ourselves. So however you like to use your maps, there's plenty of different ways to do so, and there's plenty of different ways to explore the new terrain that you might be checking out, utilizing all of those different base maps or those 3D maps as well. All right. Backing out. Just check here, make sure we don't have any immediate questions to answer. Jeremy, how we doing? Having a hard time pulling up that document here.
Yep, all good. Tackling some questions in the chat, but you were good to keep rolling.
Perfect. All right. So moving right along. after we've gotten through all of those base layers, things like that, we're going to start talking about navigating the map. So as you can see, I've been moving around the map pretty easily here. And the quickest way to do so is just taking one finger and you can just start to pan along the map if you want to just move from side to side, move up and down. And then if you want to start to zoom in, you can pinch, you can pull out to kind of pull out. And that's going to be one of the quick, easy ways to start zooming in, zooming around the map. But say I'm like we're over here on the west, and say I want to start exploring something over in Pennsylvania, per se. You know, that's a great state for fishing, right? So the easiest way to do so is going to be, let's see, I'm going to click up where it now says Alabama. I'm going to click up on that state, right on the state name, and I'm going to scroll until I find the state that I want to jump to. And I'm going to press done. And from there, I'm going to, right next to that state name, you can see there's a box, and I'm going to press on that box, and that's going to jump me straight to Pennsylvania. Again, this is a really quick, easy way that's going to allow you to not have to zoom around the map and do different things and take a ton of time. You can, you know, like I said, if you're exploring California and then you want to not have to pan all the way over to Pennsylvania, you can quickly and easily find it up top, jump there, and that's going to be the easiest way to do so. But say now that we're back, I'm exploring Pennsylvania, but I open my app, Pennsylvania is up, Pennsylvania selected, but I now want to look for, let's say, Bear Creek in Colorado. The easiest way to do so, you would think, is going to be start searching Bear Creek. What that's going to do now that we have Pennsylvania selected and we're searching in Pennsylvania currently is going to populate any of those Bear Creeks in Pennsylvania. Obviously, Bear Creek is a pretty popular name for a waterway across the entire lower 48. So the easiest way to do that, if we're looking for Bear Creek in Colorado, is going to be to go back to that state selection, press done, jump to Colorado, and we can then search for Bear Creek, and that will give you the Bear Creek that you'll want to be searching for in Colorado, if that would be the one that you were specifically looking for, or again, in a different case for any different state. You'll want to make sure that if you're searching for a specific waterway and you know the specific state it's in, that you have that state selected there. Awesome. And so those are going to be kind of those three main ways that you'll be moving around the app, kind of jumping from waterway to waterway. Obviously, you can search for towns again if you're going to search for towns or things like that. Make sure you do have that state selected that you want to be searching in. So the next thing we're going to be jumping into is really starting to explore those map icons. So as you saw when we switched over from that basic to pro, we started to have some of those map icons populate, and we now get access to a bunch of those different icons. The easiest way to kind of go through them is going to be to jump into the filters section here. So we turned on that public lands layer, so we'll scroll back up to the top of the filters and map settings and kind of walk through all of these. So as I mentioned, the first thing you see here is going to be those stream classes. As I mentioned, everybody's mapping experience is custom. Some people come to trout routes looking for just the biggest, the best, quote unquote, waterways that they can find. And some people come to trout routes because that they want to get away from the crowds and they want to go up into the mountains, into areas that they've never been and never could have imagined going because that they just simply didn't know where there was water or how they could access it. So one of the ways that you can start to do that, you can tailor your experiences. Say, I don't care about those class 2 or class 3 streams. I just want those gold medal and class 1 streams. I want the big popular stuff that has the big, huge fish, right? That's what people tend to think. So if that's your way and that's the way you are looking to fish and find water, that's going to be super easy by just simply toggling off those class 2 and class 3 streams. Say you're a blue liner and you want to start exploring only those class 2 and those class 3. Again, I wouldn't necessarily plan an entire trip around one of these rivers where you could likely do that with a class 1 or gold medal stream. The class 2 and class 3 are going to be those blue line streams where you're going to want to probably pack in the possibility to hit a few of these. It's going to be smaller waterways, things like that. There might not be as many fish per mile. A lot of them are going to be draining into some of those larger waterways. So it's going to be one of those things where if you are going to start exploring the map this way, you can really start exploring some of those larger areas, start to plan out some of those longer hikes, things like that, and do a lot of that blue lining that way. So we'll go ahead and toggle all of that water back on and continue moving down. And now we get to those special filters we see most popular only. And one of the nice things as you're diving into those maps and filter settings is you can see there's those little eyes right next to any of these special filters. That's going to at any time allow you to, if you're like, what does this filter do? What is it going to do? And you toggle it on and off and you still can't figure out what it does. Those little eyes are going to explain exactly what that filter does, exactly what it can add to the map for you. And so this most popular, if you toggle that on, that's going to, again, like it mentioned in that explanation, toggle on those most popular, those most productive waterways. So again, if you're looking to have those experiences where you're fishing those historic waters, things like that, this is going to be one of the easy ways to start exploring those. Toggling that back off. Again, we talked about easements earlier. So this is toggling on fishing easements only is going to show you sections of water and I should say uh, waterways that have sections of fishing easements on them. So again, a nice easy way to start maybe exploring some of those waterways that have those county level easements, things like that, that don't necessarily see as much pressure. The next filter is going to be that tailwaters only filter. This is going to be one that a lot of anglers are utilizing right now and for the rest of the winter until a lot of those streams open up. This tailwaters only filter is going to show you, as it says, only the tailwaters around your area. So as you may know, those are going to be those sections of water that have dam releases that are going to keep those waterways typically running and open at a consistent flow for the majority of the winter. And unlike a lot of those freestone streams, spring creeks, things like that, some of the spring creeks might stay open depending on how cold it gets and depending on how big they are, and depending on what kind of flow they have based on the topography. But this tailwaters only filter is going to be a great tool to figure out, all right, where is a fairly sure bet I can at least get on the water and see some moving water. Not going to guarantee any fish, right? But this will at least give you a start to be able to find some water as the winter months drag on here. So we'll click that back off. You can see that pulls up a lot of water, those tailwaters. It does squeeze you into much less water, but if you got to get out in the winter, if you really got to scratch that itch, that's the one way to find the water you might want to do so on. As you can see, these next few are going to be the partner content that we've been able to build into the app. So this is something that we're really proud of at Trout Routes. We've been able to build in a lot of really exciting Trout Unlimited events, as well as for those of you who aren't aware of Rare Waters. Rare Waters properties are sections of private water that we've partnered with Rare Waters to be able to show right in the app. And those are sections, as I said, of private water that you can book directly through the app, and it makes it really easy to get on a section of water that you might not have access to any other time and explore a really exciting day with friends on some new, potentially untouched water. So those are going to be some really exciting opportunities that you can quickly and easily find utilizing those partner content layers. The next layer we're going to explore is going to be the bridges layer. And this is going to be one of those that we get a lot of emails and questions about in general is, okay, I know I can access water in my state at bridges, and I can, depending on your stream bed access laws, I can move my way up or I can move my way down. Um, and this is going to be one of those main ways that you can kind of start to do that, right? But to find those bridges, you're going to have to click on the river itself. Those bridges aren't just going to populate. There are a lot of bridges around the country, right? So we made the decision to not have all of those bridges shown and just have those bridges shown on specific waterways as they're selected. And you can see here, we've got those two different color bridges that pop up. Brown bridges are going to be just kind of general bridges, and those orange bridges are going to be some of those special, quote unquote, exciting bridges that offer you one-click street view. So, as I said, you're exploring different bridges, different potential access options, and you see these orange bridges. One really quick, easy way to potentially understand what that waterway that you're getting to is going to look like is going to be this one-click street view that we can quickly pull up and get really awesome, easy access, easy look at what the water, what the access might look like, what the parking might look like from that one-click street view. So That's going to be one of those really nice tools to, again, kind of understand what you're getting yourself into if you're planning a trip to a new area and you have no idea what it might look like. That Street View, one-click Street View right into Google Maps is going to give you that really quick, easy access. I know that's one that a lot of people really enjoy once they find it out. They start using that one all the time. So jumping back right into that filters and map settings there, you can see right below that is going to be those national parks and state park icons. Right earlier there we go. We were right there near Rocky Mountain National Park, and you can see those icons aren't big, but if you do want to toggle them on or off, that's really quick and easy right there. The next one, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be that public land layer. So as we back out, you can see as we turn on and off that public land layer, that's going to take away or add back that green shading. This is one way that people typically find sections of water that they want to fish is utilizing that green shading. You certainly don't have to though. The one way to kind of look at the waterway specifically and understand does this water flow through public or private land is going to be the gray shading along those waterways. You can see as we zoom in here, there's these sections of water that have the gray shading bordered on them, and then they lose that gray shading moving into those kind of unhighlighted sections. That's going to be a really quick, easy view, especially if you don't have that public lands layer turned on, as to uh, how again, how can I access that water? Am I able to get in and out? Again, depending on your stream bed access laws, you might be able to move up and down from those sections as long as you keep your feet wet. Other states, especially like Colorado, you certainly want to know where those boundaries are. So that's going to be kind of that best, quick, easy way without that public lands layer. As you can see, once we turn that public lands layer on, you can kind of confirm where those public sections cut off. So it looks like we had one quick question to run through Street View again, and that's going to be a real quick, easy one. So I do want to jump right back into that. So as you can see, we selected a stream, and that was all we did is if I click back off the map here, you click right onto that waterway itself, and that's going to highlight the river. This is then going to allow us to zoom in and select those street view, those orange bridges, which are going to be those street view bridges. From there, you can see we've got the big orange bar. And if we click that with one click, that will jump us again to that street view. This one doesn't look like it offers us a ton of information from here, but it at least gives you the idea that it's going to be a dirt road, things like that. So, these street views are great for multiple different reasons. So, jumping right back, we will zoom back out here and we will jump back into those filters and keep moving. So the main icon within the app is going to be the fishing access app. So this is going to be where, again, you'll be able to access that water responsibly and safely. This is going to typically have some good parking at these areas, things like that. And that's going to be the main icon in the app. As we start moving around the water, that's going to be one of those sections. Anytime you see that icon, that'll be an area that you'll know you can safely park, you can safely get in the water there. So that's going to be, again, kind of the main icon in the app if you want to give a main icon. The next one we'll turn on is going to be parking. This is going to allow you to find general parking that might be along public sections of water. It might not be necessarily designated as a fishing access point, and instead is just a general parking area or parking pull-off, whatever it might be. But as you can see, a lot of these general parking pull-offs are along public sections of water. So it'd be a really quick, easy way to find some of those access points that people might not necessarily know as those specific fishing access points. Moving along, we're going to have those campsites. You can see if I zoom out, that populates quite a few campsites, especially around Colorado. We've had multiple users who have said that they get they get all of their camping for an entire trip simply off of trout routes. They may not be planners, like myself. I kind of like going with the flow, potentially grabbing a campsite or grabbing a hotel the same night, whatever it might be. And we've had multiple users say that they've done exactly that, where they were on the water all day, spent too long, weren't able to get to the campsite that they thought they were going to be able to get to that night. And so they pulled open the app and were able to find camping right there really quick and easy. The next one that we'll turn on here, hopefully we can zoom out and find an example, is going to be that trailheads icon. There you go. One of the nice things as we zoom in here is we do have a ton of trails built out within the app. So I wouldn't necessarily call us a trail or a hiking app. You know, obviously we've got the backcountry app to be able to take you on all of your hiking adventures. But this is going to give you a great kind of start to any of those trailheads, things like that, that might lead you to certain waterways. Again, going to be a great place to start as you're planning your trip. Boat ramps. This is going to be a big one. Although a vast majority of users say that they're mainly walk and wade anglers, this is going to be a great tool for those of you who do primarily fish out of drift boats, or if you're fishing out of a drift boat once a year, things like that. You can find any of those quick and easy boat ramps right within the app as well. And one of the nice things is you can click in. I will say with all of these icons, you can click in and it's going to give you some really quick information, how far you are away, the elevation, and it's also going to allow you to click and grab directions. It's going to allow you to share it to a friend, and it's going to even allow you to create a pin. Say you jumped in at that access point and you want to make sure you remember that access point. That'll allow you to create a pin right there, drop it, and remember it forever. All right, so next one, dams. So again, this is going to have that icon next to it that we can click into, but this one isn't going to necessarily explain to you what the filter does. I think dams is fairly explanatory. You click the dams icon off, it's not going to show you where the dams are. If you click the dams icon on, it'll show you where the dams are. But this one doesn't have just that select or deselect mat, right? So if we click into that eye, we can see, all right, this one's going to have three different options. If I select hide, it's going to hide all of the dams from the map as if you were to completely deselect it. If I have select stream only, it's going to have only those dams on rivers when you select them, or on a river when you select that specific river, I should say. And then if you have show, it'll show you all of the dams all of the time. So it just kind of again depends on how cluttered you want your app to be. Again, cluttered in quotations, depending on how you like to view your maps, how many icons you want on a specific waterway as you're trying to explore around. So moving right along, we've got those habitat projects. Those habitat projects are going to be we've built in a lot of specifically Trout Unlimited habitat projects. So stream restorations, things like that. And you'll be able to find those along the water. Currently, we've got this auto selected as stream only. So this one will be a nice one to not, again, not clutter the app too much, but be able to show you where some of those stream habitat sections might be. Again, another pro tip, a great place to start is some of those sections that have been worked on by TU. A lot of the times those have had work done that is specifically right to benefit the angling, benefit the fish in those streams. And so again, a great place to potentially start to explore as you're looking at different rivers. Trout stocking, going to be exactly that. It's just going to let you know whether that is a stocking location or not. We don't necessarily have stocking schedules. You know, that's changes from year to year, state to state. We haven't necessarily figured out the best way to pull in that information. We might, you know, down the road, but right now the stocking icon is going to be able to show you stocking locations in a general sense. So for those of you who are potentially out east and fishing mainly stocked fish, things like that, this will at least start to give you an idea of where those stocking locations might be. The next one is going to be one that a lot of users, again, don't even know that we have built into the app, and that's going to be trout lakes. Most people know us as a moving water for trout specifically app, right? But we do have stocked lakes built into the app. So if you see, we can toggle on those trout lakes, and you'll see that brings up all of those smaller blue icons, depending on what zoom level we're at, they'll move off the screen. But you can see, especially moving around Colorado, there are quite a few that are able to be interacted with. So we can turn those back off. Again, those are auto selected as off, so you will have to go into your filters and turn those on if those are something you want on, as we do, again, have those off just to create a little less noise on the screen itself. Fly shops, we already talked about those. Those are, you know, the kind of source for all things, right? So whether you're looking for gear, whether you're looking for intel, whether you're just looking to make a pit stop on your way to the next section of water. Those are going to be right there, right in the app. And again, those are going to be really easy to interact with. And one of the nice things is you can jump right to their website with this icon as well as calling them to make sure they're open. You can call, maybe get a little intel, maybe sweet talk them into giving you some intel over the phone, or if you are going to show up in person, you can get directions right there as well. And that'll take you either to, if you're on iOS, you can jump into your Apple Maps or your Google Maps, or if you're over on Android, that'll jump you over into your Google Maps. All right. The next one we're going to take a little bit of time on, as this one is, like I mentioned, going to be potentially the best icon, the best feature in the app, depending on how you utilize it. And that's going to be stream gauges. So again, this is going to be one of those icons that you can either hide all of them from the map, you can have them only on trout, shown on trout water, or you can show all gauges. One of the nice things is we have built all of the USGS stream gauges into the app, but that does mean there are multiple gauges that are not on trout water. So again, that can create noise for some people. So some people do have that only selected to show for trout water. I typically have it for all water. If I'm looking at some of my bass water, things like that, this is a quick, easy place to jump in and do so. But with that, we will jump into the stream gauges themselves. And so as we click on the stream gauge, that's going to pull up our all of our information. That's going to give you flow, height, and depending on what stream gauge you're at, about half of them, I believe, around the country are pulling in live temperature as well. And when I say live, I mean live. This is updated about every 15 minutes or so. So if you wake up in the morning and you check this before you head out on the water, you can feel real confident that those flows and those conditions and that height is going to be pretty consistent. Obviously, if there's a huge storm or something like that, you might want to check halfway to the water or whatever it might be, depending on how your drive is. But this is going to be the most consistent, the most accurate way to find out those real-time conditions on a specific waterway. Well, as we jump into some of the data, you can see here we have the ability to view either the flow, height, or temperature if it's available on a week, month, or a year basis, as well as that day basis. Let's see if my connectivity wants to pull in this flow data here. I sure hope it does. Well, I'll paint a picture here to say you will see, as hopefully this loads, you will see a blue line that's going to represent that real-time flow. You'll be able to scrub along utilizing your finger to find that real time, as in what time exactly was that flow at. And then you'll see that black line will change to represent the historical median. So if you are following along on your phone, hopefully that's loaded for you on whatever gauge you've selected. And you can see that historical median changes whether you're looking at that week, month, or year view. And so you can see, all right, what is the water doing right now compared to what it is kind of consistently doing. So I know if I show up, that those fish might have no idea what's going on with the water if it's blown out compared to other years, and they might be in weird areas. Or if it's a normal year, you might know that they should be fairly consistent in where they might be and things like that. So that's going to be one of the ways that you can start to utilize. Oh, I think I just lost my screen share, but I think we're back. All right. And that didn't load, so I apologize, but I hope for those of you following along, it did load for you on your end, and you were able to see all of that rich information that you can, like I said, scrub your finger right along and start to understand all of that. So the next one is going to be tributary boundaries. For this, I'm going to take us to the great state of Minnesota. For those of you who don't know, Minnesota is where trout routes started, and this is going to be the best way to show some of those tributary boundaries. So for those of you who aren't aware, The North Shore of Minnesota, the North Shore of Lake Superior in Minnesota, is has some pretty fantastic migratory fishing. Migratory is one of those things that Trout Routes is still kind of figuring out how to do best, and we're still working on ways to integrate a lot of those amazing Western and East Coast rivers. So we're still working on the best way to introduce a lot of the rich migratory information into the stream card and things like that. But if you are starting at a base level, especially if you're in Minnesota, we do have some of these tributary boundaries that at least help you understand how far up can I fish before that I'm going to reach a section, whether it be a waterfall or a dam or something like that, where those fish are no longer going to be able to move up, and I'm going to be quote unquote wasting my time. So as you can see, all of those light blue dots are going to be able to quickly and easily give you those tributary boundaries so you can kind of, again, understand how long of a section of water you might have to explore on a certain river. So we'll deselect those and we'll jump back to Colorado. Just as I mentioned, it's just rich with data in Colorado here. So as we move into the miscellaneous category here, we do get into some of the more minute, more detailed things that, again, as you're really starting to customize your experience, you might start to play around with these. The first is going to be that county or state overlay. As you can see, that's going to bring on those kind of dashed black lines for all of those different counties. This is a nice way if you are in a state that has very specific county to county regulations or things like that. This is going to be a great way to make sure that you know if you're crossing over into a different county as you're exploring around the map. I typically have that turned off. Again, just creates a little less noise on the map. Persistent settings. This is one that I typically have turned on just because that I like to be able to close my app and open the app and have the same settings that I utilized last time, because I kind of figured out, again, how I like to have my settings set before that I start to explore a waterway. So that persistent settings, if you have that selected on anytime you turn on or turn off a filter and then you close the app, that will when you reopen the app, those same settings will be selected and you won't have to go and do all the filter changes and things like that. So I typically will have that persistent settings on. Lock filters enabled. This one is then going to be, again, we'll jump into the eye here, but this one is going to be as you change from those map modes, if it will prevent you from, again, having to reset all of those filters. So this is typically a nice one to have turned on as well, just making sure that, again, as you're jumping into those different map modes, you're not having to go in and completely redo all of your filtering. Snap to stream. This is one I typically have turned off. Again, you do you. But this one, if we go ahead and select it on, and click on a stream, we're going to jump right into that stream. If you're backed out fairly far exploring a territory that you don't know about, it can be a little bit jarring if you click on a stream with that snap to stream. So I typically will have that turned off. And if you select a stream, you'll be able to stay zoomed out, especially if that waterway is longer. This will allow you to make sure you're seeing that entire section of water if you don't have that snap to stream turned on. All right, next one is going to be the zoom fade enabled. So again, the settings fades out stream access points when you zoom out, just making it easier, a little bit cleaner. So you can see if we have that selected, as we zoom out, you can see some of those icons disappear. And at this higher level, you can see, all right, some of these areas have higher concentration of water, but I don't necessarily need all of the icons from this high up. I don't necessarily know which area I'm even going to on the map yet, but as I zoom in, I want to start to see some of those icons, some of those access points, those campgrounds, parking, things like that. So that's just going to be that zoom fade enabled filter there. If you have that turned on, that will, again, just help you keep your map a little bit cleaner as you zoom out. The last one is going to be Google Maps default. So as I mentioned, you can select directions as we jump in here, and that will bring you into your default map choice. This again is one of those questions that we get a lot from users because that they're like, I selected the wrong mapping application and now I don't know how to switch it back. That's going to be the very last filter all the way at the bottom of these filters and map settings. And that's going to be Google Maps default. So if you have that selected, that will take you to Google Maps, as it sounds like. And if you have that deselected for iOS users, that will take you directly to your Apple Maps. So based on which mapping app you use, that's going to be where you'll be able to select which one it jumps you to. All right. Looks like we've got one question to quickly go over the 3D map angle. We've banked a lot of them for later, so if we haven't gotten to your question, don't worry. So for 3D maps, we're in a pretty good area that should have some good topography, so we should be able to see some exciting stuff. If we jump into the map layers down along the bottom bar on the left side, you can see underneath base maps, above those different roads, terrain, and satellite layer, we've got the 2D or 3D maps. We're going to go in and select 3D maps. That's going to jump us into those 3D maps. And just like we were before, we can pinch out or pinch in to zoom in. We can zoom around, but you're like, okay, this is a weird angle. How do I change this angle? So the trick is going to be to utilize two fingers, and you're going to put both fingers, press them on the map at the same time, and then push your fingers up just so slightly. So it's pretty small movements. We'll make pretty big adjustments, but if you want to get closer to that horizon, you'll move your fingers up, and if you want to bring it back, you'll move your fingers down the screen. So hopefully that helps you solve that issue of being able to move around with those 3D maps. So you're going to be utilizing those two fingers to kind of get down to that horizon, and then you can just zoom in, zoom out, just like you do with the regular map. But that two fingers is going to be what helps you change the angle of your 3D maps there. All right, we will turn that back off, zoom back out here, and I know we are cruising through time and we've got a lot of questions, but I want to make sure we are covering everything here. So give me one moment. Just checking. No other questions here. Awesome, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Perfect. So the next thing we are going to explore is going to be the stream card. So as you can see a few different times, we have clicked in and out of the river, and you can see what we call the stream card pop up. So again, to get that stream card to populate, you can see we're cruising around the map. Anytime you click on any of those colored waterways, that's going to populate what we call, again, the stream card. We jumped in here a little bit before to find the rating and find the understanding of those classifications. But you can see we get a lot of other information right in the stream card here as well. First thing first, we're going to get, obviously, the waterway name. We're then also going to get the county and state that that waterway is in. And then again, we're going to have that distance away. We're going to have the median elevation. And then we're going to have those next three buttons are going to be share. Again, just like any of those points you create or any of those markers or icons on the map, you can share it directly to a friend in multiple different ways. We can bookmark it. So we'll go ahead and bookmark this stream, and we'll actually be able to jump right to this stream in a little bit as we jump into the My Content section. But this bookmark here, as you can see, if you select or deselect, you'll see that turn blue as you have that specific waterway bookmarked. And that will just essentially save it as one of your favorite streams. We'll be able to find it in the My Favorite Streams. The next one is going to be that offline map. So this is going to be, we'll jump into the offline layers, the offline maps later, but this is going to be one way that you would be able to save specifically this waterway for offline maps. So say sometimes people want to save a overall section of a waterway, and that's really easy to do. We'll jump into that later, but sometimes people want to specifically jump into the stream card and save that offline, save that specific waterway offline. If they know that's the only river that they're going to be hitting that day, that's the only river that they may need offline maps for. That's one way to do it for sure. So the next part that we're going to start exploring is going to be these different tabs on the stream card. As you can see, I swiped up here to expand expand expand, my goodness, the stream card here. And that's going to pull up all of that amazing geography information. We're going to have the length of the waterway. We're going to have that peak elevation. We're going to have that overall elevation change. So again, this will help you understand, especially if it's a class 2 or class 3 stream. All right, is this water going to be flowing fast enough to potentially stay open during these frigid temperatures? Things like that. That slope, again, going to be a great way to help you understand how fast that water might be moving. But this elevation chart is one of my favorite things. You can click right on that elevation chart and right with your finger scrub down that chart, and you can see right where your finger is at represented by the red icon that moves right along the river as you move your finger as well. So this is a great way to potentially find deep plunge pools, dams, certain things, certain major features, things like that, that you can really easily identify with this elevation chart. You also have the ability to explore that slope chart as well. Sometimes that's a little bit harder to understand for some people, so that's why the elevation chart is the auto-selected option there. The next tab we're going to jump into is the local information. So as I mentioned, this is going to be one of those sections that you'll start to get some more information on those specific regulations for certain waterways, things like that, as well as some of the general season guidance. So you can see Colorado waters are open to trout fishing year round, unless otherwise noted, which is then you would be able to start to explore some of that in the stream card here, which would be below the river characteristics. And so you can see this river characteristics section would really quickly and easily help you figure out, all right, is this a popular waterway in the state? Is this section a tailwater? One of the big things, again, you're going to want to make sure or look at when you're doing some of that winter fishing. And then does this waterway have a easement section on it? Again, another thing to look at if you're looking for some of those unpressured sections or things like that. So if any of those were true about this waterway, those kind of grayed boxes on the left-hand side of the screen would be dark and would be filled in. So as you're clicking around on your own, following along, you might see some of those different river characteristics are highlighted. That just lets you know that that waterway does have one of those kind of key characteristics that we've identified. The next tab, again, fly shops. I know we've been pushing it a lot, but this is one of the things that we want to make sure that users have access to at multiple different points along their journey, however they're exploring waterways. Because again, these fly shops harness all of the information that you might need, all of the gear you might need, things like that. So we want to make sure it's easy for people to find them, get to them, all of that kind of stuff. The next is going to be stream flows. So this is going to be one that I'm going to actually click off of that waterway, and we will find something a little bit bigger. We will jump over into that stream flows. And again, stream gauges, another one that I know I've mentioned multiple times tonight, but I can't stress it enough. This is going to be a great way to quickly and easily understand the conditions of the certain sections that you might want to explore. And this way of accessing it specifically is a great way to start understanding and honing in on those sections that you might want to explore if you are looking at a larger or longer waterway. So as you can see, it pulls in all of those gauges along the entire river so you can start to understand the flows and the temperatures potentially at those different sections. Obviously, with it being pretty deep into winter, certain gauges here are iced up, things like that. But this is going to really allow you to start to understand, okay, which of these have flowing water and which of them should I avoid right now? And in the summer, which of them maybe have cooler water and which of them should I avoid just as with in the winter there. So that stream flows tab is going to be a really great tool to help you understand any of those different gauges along that water. One of the cool things too is if you do select a river, let's see here. If we do select a waterway that doesn't have any gauges along it or has few gauges along it, and we still want to understand, all right, what's going on within that watershed? if it weren't iced up, we would be able to use this within the watershed section of the stream flows tab to start to understand how the entire watershed as a whole is doing, just to be able to kind of hone in on, all right, if the watershed is overall has a lot of water flowing through it, I can probably hone in on and understand that this smaller stream that doesn't have a gauge on it is probably flowing pretty fast. So, just kind of another way to start to understand and make sure you're staying safe, especially before that you get out to water and things like that. The next one, especially, is about staying safe. We want to make sure that users are as informed as they can be, because that, for those of you who don't know, stream bed access laws differ from state to state. So you might be in Minnesota where you can jump into some water, and as long as you stay in that water and you stay below keep your feet wet, you can kind of start to explore from whether you're flowing through private land or not. Where if you did that in Colorado, you would definitely find yourself having some issues, we'll say. So you want to make sure that you're checking out these access laws before that you start exploring a new state, things like that, just to make sure you understand those stream bed access laws and you're staying safe while out on the water and while exploring new areas. So it'll give you that kind of in a nutshell on the access laws, but then it'll also break down those specific walk and wade and those floating kind of restrictions and laws as well. And then you'll also have any of those websites, the state websites, extra resources for information, things like that. If you want to just make sure, it's always nice to have a tool if you run into a feisty landowner, things like that. Just always make sure you have all of the documentation to make sure you're doing things right and be able to prove that. The last one is going to be the My Content, and this is going to be content specifically for this river. So you can add notes, you can add photos. One of the things I like to do is as I'm fishing a new waterway, I like to jot down certain notes, make sure I'm kind of noting what the conditions are, things like that. But then I also like to add any photos of the waterway, the water conditions, so I can look back and say, all right, where was the water compared to the bank on this day when I fished it the first time? How might that change if I'm coming back and fishing it again and it's completely different? So that's going to be where you'll be able to do that on a stream by stream basis. And that's going to kind of cover the basics of that stream card. Again, that's going to harness a ton of information. And as you're poking around, it's going to be one of those great areas to start when you are exploring specific waterways, because it does harness a lot of those other pieces of information like the stream gauges and things like that right within that stream card. All right. So we are definitely cruising on time here, so I want to make sure we are conscious of that. And so I want to start kind of looking at some of the last things here along the right-hand side. So you can see up top along the right-hand side here, we've got those three icons. This is going to be pretty specific to iOS, I will say. But we do have that first one there. You can see the little arrow. That's going to jump you to your location. One of the things that people always ask us is my location going to be available even if I have no service? If you have access to satellite, you will still be able to grab your location and be able to add markers and things like that. So that is one nice thing. If you are out and you've saved those offline maps, you'll still be able to have access to jumping yourself to where I am on those offline maps and add notes and add your markers, just like you would expect. The next one is going to be that River Miles tool. River Miles is going to be great. You can select one point along a river, and whether you're planning a walk and wade trip or you're planning a float trip, you can quickly and easily see how long a section of water might be. So you can really thoroughly plan that trip. Again, we've got mostly walk and wade anglers within the maps, but for those who are boat anglers, this is a great tool for them as well. I know I like to check out, or is this section of water a mile or 2 miles if I'm walking and wading, but it is really great to know whether you're doing an 8 mile float or an 11 mile float, obviously, if you're jumping in the raft. So that's going to cover the River Miles tool. Again, that one is going to be specific to iOS at this point, but we are working hard on hopefully bringing platform parity on that tool specifically. The next one is going to be our in-app tutorials. Whether you're just kind of jumping into the app or you need a refresher on how do I do things, this is going to be the place for it. So as you can see, how do I get the most out of Pro? How do I understand Pro map icons? How do I see live readings of river flows? And if you click into those, that's going to take you specifically where you are on the map and start to walk you through those icons. You can always skip that in any time to escape it, but those are going to be really thorough, really in-depth, and really help you dive deeper into the app. All right. So I'm going to stop my share here as I know we are getting down on time. So I want to make sure we save some time here for any of those questions. So, perfect. All right, before we dive into those questions, I do want to just talk about a couple of the other ways you can learn. So we just jumped into those in-app tutorials, but I want to make sure we also mention that this class is going to be posted on our YouTube channel, as well as a reminder that all of our previous master classes have already been posted on there. So you can jump in at any time. We've got a really awesome streamer master class from last year. I should say 2 years ago now. And we've got a super exciting class that we just did a few weeks ago that's all on tailwater fishing with Howard Croston from, he's a competition angler who most of you are probably familiar with from overseas, and he's the brand manager for Hardy and Grays. So we had him join us a couple weeks ago, and he got super detailed and super technical when it comes to tailwaters. So for those of you who joined us for that class, I hope that we were able to dive in a little bit deeper onto the app in this class. But for any more information, you can always jump into that user's guide on our website. That's across the top hand bar of our website there. That section of our website is going to be getting updated over the next few months. So hopefully that PDF guide is useful for you in the meantime. It should answer a ton of questions. It is pretty long and pretty in depth. And we are always available via email as well if you do need to just ask a quick question. We understand there's a lot to understand within the app, and so we're always willing to answer those questions. The next thing I want to mention is we do have more masterclasses coming. We're super excited about what this year is going to hold for the masterclass program. So we are going to be trying to continue these monthly 101s. We are getting into our travel schedule here for some of the shows. We're excited to see a lot of you in person, hopefully. And so with that, we might be skipping February for that 101, but we should be back at it in March there. And we do have in February, though, an exciting masterclass, and it's actually going to be just next week coming up with Yakota. So for those of you who aren't aware, Yakota has some really awesome organization gear and things like that. So we're going to be talking at a higher level about organizing your gear as we get into the first part of the season here. Again, if you haven't already been out on the water, if you are out on the water, it might be nice to get a reorganization going before the spring comes, right? So we'll be talking all about organizing your gear with the Yakota team next week, and we hope you can join us. Make sure you keep an eye out for the email that should be coming your way this week with a link for that sign up. All right. Time for Q&A. So, Jeremy, can you actually just start firing off some of those questions I know you've been jotting down for me, and we'll try to make our way through. I know we might start losing people here as we've just crossed over the hour mark, but we will stick around and try to make it through as many of those questions as we can.
Yeah. Yeah. First question was, can we walk through what the search parameters are and can it include GPS coordinates?
Yeah, certainly. And Jeremy, you might be the man to answer on this one because I know we've talked a lot about the potential of adding the ability to search by GPS coordinates. I don't know if that's something you might be able to comment on coming to the app as I start to share my screen here.
Yeah. So for search parameters for points of interest, you can search for fishing access, campsites, trailheads. You can search for rivers as well, either by the entire river or by that section name. And in iOS right now, you can search for coordinates, and it will be coming to web and Android soon.
How about that? That's quite the exciting update. So again, one of those reminders as you are jumping into the search bar here, make sure you've got that state selected that you are wanting to search in. It's just going to make that searching experience so much easier for you.
Next question is, I've been in some shops and they've recommended Onyx to determine what's private and public. Does Trout Routes have that functionality? I'd hate to have multiple subscriptions. So Trout Routes does have all the public land in the US, and that's the same data that Onyx is using. And you now can click on any of those parcels and see who that owner is or who the land manager is. We don't have private parcel data in the app yet. That may be an update that you can look forward to in the future.
Another question perfect for you, Jeremy. Hey.
Mhm. Yep, this is my life.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you joined us. So, how about the next one? What are we moving into?
Any tips on figuring out stream flow direction, especially for smaller spring creeks with no tributaries? So
Yeah,
Matt, I was thinking maybe you want to show elevation charts.
I was just going to say one of those things that you can really quickly and easily use to understand the direction of that flow is going to be that elevation chart because as we showed, once you scrub along, you can see that red icon moving along that flow. So you can tell, all right, this is the highest section of the river. This is the lowest section of the river. I don't think the gravity would tell me that the water is going to flow from the highest to the lowest point, right? So this would be the quick, easy way to figure out, all right, which way is this stream flowing? Awesome.
Excellent. Next question is, how do other Onyx accounts work with Trout Routes? If we already have other Onyx Pro accounts, do we need Onyx and Trout Routes Pro? Trying to figure out how this all works with acquisitions. Same things going on with other apps in the space.
Yeah, totally. So right now we do have the ability for if you are creating a new account to utilize your Onyx account and sign up. That does if you are an elite member or over on Onyx Hunt or any of the other Onyx family of apps, that isn't going to automatically get you access to Pro. That is going to be a different subscription, but we are working on figuring out some different discounts and things like that for current Onyx members. So make sure you keep your eye out as we start to figure out some of that here in 2025. But they are for now separate memberships with the ability to utilize the same account as you have used for your Onyx account.
All right, next one. I believe you covered this after the question got asked, but just in case, can you get directions to a dropped pin?
Yes. So again, we will just accidentally opened up a chat. Let me move that off the screen here and drop a pin. So let's see here. We'll find a section, write on some water, and we'll drop a new marker on this bridge. We'll go down, we'll save that marker, and you can see we can click into that marker and that will give us that same ability to grab directions right to that icon. So real quick and easy, one click onto the marker, and then one click into directions.
Perfect. All right, next question. Are photos of boat ramps available? I can take that one. Currently, we don't have photos of every boat ramp. You may be able to find some in Street View. We are working on adding a lot more rich content to the app, though, so that may be something we'll be able to get in there for you this year. So keep you posted. Another one, will Alaska be added to the app? Kind of the same answer there. It's not on the roadmap for right now. We know there's a lot of great water up there. We know there's a lot of new species up there that we haven't covered yet. It's definitely on the roadmap for the future. Not sure if we're going to get to it this year. This is a great one, Matt. Is there a social component to the app? Can folks share information about actual stream experiences?
So not at this point. That's one of that's funny. That takes us back to some of the early days of Trout Routes, right? Of when Zach was exploring the options to create a platform that people share and kind of community-based app, right? Whereas we have kind of taken the path after exploring that and kind of quickly navigating away from it as to where that you're not necessarily able to share public information to the public, but you can absolutely, add those that all of that information and all of those experiences to your own profile. So that is one of the things that some people see as a downside to trout routes, is they can't find all of that awesome information that other people might be sharing and other people might be experiencing. But some people find a lot of comfort in that, and that might be one of their favorite parts about the app, is that they know they can add anything to the app and be able to have all of that information saved privately to them. So that has been the kind of path that we've taken, and the path that I know Onyx has always taken. There's always the possibility where that changes, but right now, the app is not necessarily built for community sharing or anything like that.
All right, next one would be, and I believe you covered this, Matt. Is there a place in the app to keep a fishing log and pin spots fished in the log? So that would be everything under that My Content that Matt ran through. And we are pushing some big updates to My Content. It's going to make it a lot more usable and a lot prettier. So that will be out coming pretty soon, I believe.
Yep. So this section right here, where you're able to see any of those favorited streams, like we talked about, we saved that stream earlier. We can jump right back to that Soap Creek there in Colorado. Any of that's going to be accessible in that My Content. But this My Content is going to be getting a really nice facelift here. I know Jeremy and I have gotten a peek into what that looks like, and it's going to be incredibly nice to use and incredibly intuitive for all of our users to be able to navigate around all of their saved content way quicker and way easier.
Next one would be what's the easiest way to find gauges? Is there a filter or a layer? I believe you covered that one as well. We should be good
Yeah.
there in the
Yeah.
stream.
Again, if we want to just quickly cover it, you should be able to find those stream gauges by finding this icon right here anywhere along the map, clicking into it. As long as it's not iced up, you'll find all of that rich information. And again, if we jump into the filters here, we do have some ability to change how often that's showed, whether you're viewing all of them, whether you're viewing gauges just on that trout water, or you're not viewing any gauges at all. So some people are like, my favorite gauge is no longer shown on the map. Make sure you've got show all gauges selected if that's the case. If you're not seeing a gauge that you're familiar with and you know is on a section of water or whatever it might be. Um, all right. Hopefully that answers that even more thoroughly.
All right, Street View is getting a lot of love today. A request to just see how to find Street View again.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this bridge icon I mentioned, Jeremy, I think this is one of those ones that people find out that they can access this street view with one click and they are excited about it. So I'm glad that everyone seems to feel the same way. So again, we're going to click on to a stream. That's going to open the stream card. If we do a quick soft swipe down, that will minimize the stream card, going to give you a lot more screen real estate, right? You can see as we have that stream selected, that's going to show all of those bridges. Those brown bridges are going to be your kind of just quote unquote, we'll call them basic bridges. And then your orange bridges, your orange icon is going to be those street view bridges. We can click on, and with one click here, we can see that street view. Again, some of them might not necessarily have a view of the water, and some of them you might jump to and you might have a view of somebody standing in the water. I know we've done it multiple times, and there's been people already fishing that section that you're exploring. So that's usually a pretty good tell that that might be a section of water you might want to jump into. Hey, Jeremy.
There's a great Street View of a guy netting a fish at Deckers. So
Oh,
yeah, go ahead
that's
and
an
pull that
awesome.
up.
I feel like they did that strategically.
Oh yeah.
Whoop.
All right. The next one was how to get back to bookmarked water. I think you just showed that there with My Content.
Yeah.
Can you actually search? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, again, just covering it, jumping into that My Content, jumping into that favorite streams, which is going to be along the top there. You can see markers, offline maps, favorite streams, that favorite streams. And then if you click on them, that'll take you right to them. Awesome.
All right, next one. I can answer this. Can you search for high elevation lakes? I tried this and it didn't work. Uh, let's see. Believe anonymous attendee sent that to me. So thank you. Anonymous, I think you uncovered a bug that's on my list and we'll get that fixed for you right away.
There we go. these classes are great. Sometimes people are poking around even deeper than we are on a daily basis, and they can find things like that. So thank you to whoever that was. We appreciate you joining, even if it was just for that, right?
And
Uh,
on that note too, if anyone ever has any questions or things they see in the app, just email us and we'll add it to our list. We always appreciate feedback. Um, Next question, will we be at the Lancaster Fly Fishing Show in March?
Unfortunately, not. For those of you who are familiar with our show kind of circuit over the last couple of years, we've uh, historically had a really strong presence at all of the fly fishing shows. This year, we've chosen to take a step back and really focus in on some of the main shows around the country. We might revisit that plan for next year, but we are going to be just attending the fly fishing show in Denver this year, as well as popping up at some of the F3T showings, as we are super excited to be a sponsor of F3T again this year.
Next one, any way to show possible lodging near fishing areas? Example would be heading to another state or moving across your own state many hours away.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I know we've certainly thought about incorporating. I think there's a lot of turnover within the lodge space and things like that. And again, it's one of those things with fly shops where um, certain fly shops are more willing to and more able to just have based on their capacity and the amount of people they have working in the shop, able to be really detailed and really interactive with us. So, it's definitely something we'd love to potentially explore. I know if we do end up getting to Alaska, I think having lodging and things like that would be a really interesting and exciting part of launching Alaska. So I think, again, it's as Jeremy has mentioned, not as a lot of these ideas come up. They're not necessarily on the roadmap for 2025, but that doesn't mean they're not on the roadmap for down the road. So definitely an awesome idea.
A great segue to the next one. Will we be covering Canada? If you follow along with Onyx Hunt, they are just kind of getting into Canada. I believe they have national coverage there. Same with Backcountry. So some of our Onyx partners are paving the way. It's not on our roadmap again for 2025, but we are well aware that there's awesome fishing up there and would love to get that mapped out for you. So keep an eye out for it in the future. Will a copy of this recording be available later?
Yes, it sure will. As we mentioned earlier, that all of the previous master classes are over on our YouTube channel. This class is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel for viewing tomorrow as well. So make sure you check that out. It should be mid-morning or so tomorrow, depending on how the upload speeds. It's a longer class, so sometimes they take a little bit longer to upload. But mid-morning, that should be available for you to watch. You'll probably get an email sometime tomorrow with a link to the YouTube channel if you need it.
Perfect. All right, are California waters currently in the app? They are. We have all the trout streams in California, and if you do some deep diving on Matt's social media, you'll see some photos of us investigating those California waters with
Oh yeah.
mixed success. But we do have California trout waters in there, so yep, get out there.
Oh yeah.
Do we have features to show rapid names, classes, and locations in the app? Also, are there any features that show flow times between put-ins and takeouts? I can cover that one too. Currently, we don't have rapids, classes, or locations in the app. That is data we're working on getting though. Um, and with float times, we don't have a drift time calculator, but we do have that river miles tool. So we can show you, really quickly how to calculate distances between your location and the takeout or the put in and the takeout. Although that would be a fun idea if we could take the stream flow with the distance and give you a little bit of give you a calculator. So added to the R&D list.
I like it.
Do we have the ability to export my content from Trout Routes to put it in, say, Google Maps?
So right now we only have the ability to import content into Trout Route, so you can export your Google Maps data or your Onyx Maps data, things like that, and import all of those points into Trout Routes. We have not yet introduced the backwards compatibility to that.
Can you save and name a set of filters?
No, I saw that question come in here in the Q&A, and I think that's a really awesome idea. I think there are certainly if I'm, if I wanted my blue lining set of filters or my big water set of filters, my maybe migratory set of filters, things like that. I do think that's a really awesome idea. And as we've mentioned, we're expanding the My Content section of the app and really trying to help people tailor their map experience to themselves. And I think that that would be a really exciting potential way to do that. So I think that's, another thing that we can take to the team. So that's like we mentioned, another reason we love these classes is because we're out there and we're fishing, we're doing as much as we can to put the app to use, but we know we've got thousands and thousands of users who are out there every day putting the app to use as well, and we love to hear all that feedback and all those ideas that are spurred in the moment when you're using the app.
Absolutely. And although, excuse me, although you can't name a set of filters, under the filters menu, you can lock filters so that you keep the same ones turned on even if you exit out of the app and go back in. So if you do get a mode you like, you can keep that locked in there.
Great re-mention of that one.
Does the app save recent searches?
No, that's another interesting idea, Jeremy. I think, there's the potential that that would clutter that search mode a little bit, but I do like the idea of, I just searched for a river and 20 minutes later I'm trying to talk to a buddy about that river and I can't for the life of me remember what river it was that I just searched up and was looking at. And currently there's no good way to jump back in and look at what you were recently looking for. So another one of those ideas we can take along to the team, hey.
Totally. Looks like the last one, unless anyone else. Oh, looks like we just got another one, so we'll get to that. Is there a way to bypass the offline maps tile limit? Currently, there's not a way to. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
No, yeah, I was gonna, I think we were echoing each other there. Unfortunately, not. I think we are working on. Uh, it's going to be a long process, but we are working on replatforming ourselves over to the Onyx tech stack. So we're working hard to expand that tile limit and get you more ability to download larger areas. So we're working hard on that.
Yep, that is at the very top of the list. All right, Jeff asked, any chance we can see special regs in areas like no fishing, reds or other like fly number limit restrictions, barb hooks, rod limits, etc.
Yeah, some of those regulations, right? We do have, some of them are maybe waterway specific things like that that we will be able to share out. But I am going to go. I know we haven't jumped into. We just ran out of time. We might need to extend these classes moving forward, just the allotted time. We didn't jump into the web map, so I'm going to pull that up right now. And within here, I am going to jump into that maps layer, and we'll find ourselves on that. There we go, that regulations map style. And if we pull up the legend, there we go. Just needed to zoom in a little bit. If I expand my window, there we go. You can see some of those you'll see close to fishing, special regulations. And then again, if we click into some of those special regulations waterways, we can then go to that local information tab and we can find some of these, the different bag and possession limits. Sometimes you'll see barbless only, sometimes you'll see single fly only, depending on what those special regulations on those specific waterways is. So that's going to be the quickest and easiest way to find some of those special regulations. See here some gear restrictions, fishing by artificial flies and lures only. So those are going to be within that regulations layer is going to be a really nice, easy way to find some of those.
All right. Unless anyone has a last minute question to throw in the chat, I think we've got it covered, Matt.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, I want to just say thank you to you for joining me and for hanging out and helping me manage some of these awesome questions. This was a class full of questions tonight, so really appreciate you bringing all of those. And we hopefully will be able to bring you another 101 in February if you want to tune in again and ask some more questions. Otherwise, make sure you watch out for that email that we'll be sending out here in a couple days for that class next week on organizing your gear, jumping into the season here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, we really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.